All right, guys. This is Clint from the Doorway too, hanging out with a couple of guys from Cancer. Um, I think you guys are. It's Dan and John, right?
That's right.
All right, cool. So first of all, thank you for doing this. I know you're halfway around the world. It's early, early morning for you. It's probably not the best time to do these kind of things, but I appreciate it so much, guys.
Yeah, not a problem. It's actually 10 o'clock over here at the moment, so we had a bit of a cheeky sleep in, so all good.
Cool. So I kind of want to ask, Cancer, why the name of a famous death metal band from the 80s? And you
It's
used the band name
already
Cancer.
taken.
What was that?
Because Cannibal Corpse is already taken, so I think
That's fair enough. I was
Um,
just, yeah, no,
I
really,
can answer this one if you want.
yeah, you do it.
really,
Uh,
why the name Cancer when there's a band that's so legendarily already known as that name?
Yeah, all right. So we get this a lot. Obviously, seems to be a lot of people that are, I guess, find the name controversial or are upset by it. But the name actually originated when me and the former drummer of our band, Chris Skabauer, started this group. It was meant to be a side project for him when we were in with his running of his other band, Dead Space, who
Yeah.
Dan and myself were at one point. I was the keyboardist and he was the bass guitarist for. So it was kind of it was meant to be like a side project thing that we're just doing off to the side to for him, I guess, to alternate things where he was drummer and I was vocalist. But he was the one that said to me, "Well, John, I've always wanted to start a band called Cancer." And I said, and I actually said to him as well, "Hey, do you realize there is, a UK death metal band that was this?" And he said, "Well, to me, it doesn't bother me. Does it bother you?" And I said, "Honestly, it doesn't." And the reason why I see it this way is, um, for the group and the music that we were doing, I thought it was a very, very good metaphor for what we were standing for. Like a lot of the lyrics you'll see in which I write, I try to veer away from more of like the suicidal kind of typical lyrics of DSBM and write more about, I guess, just general misanthropy that I have towards the world. So I saw it as like, people are cancer, that the world is kind of like a malignant cell full of people just spawning and just carrying about their business and chuffing off into the groups and just being, not being individuals. So I thought that was just a really good encompassing name for us. The other reason as well is I see a lot of bands, you can just look in the metal archives that have heaps of duplicates anyway. And for the people that I also that say, well, these guys are iconic, these guys are legendary. Well, there's plenty of examples of bands that are iconic and legendary are duplicates as well. You look at Shining, for example, from Sweden. There's an active Shining and an active Shining from Norway. Don't see the arguments happening there. And then for the old school death metal purists that follow Cancer, the UK. Well, guess what? There was a death before death. It was a Detroit jazz band. So I see that argument is void, in this day and age. And if you want to go even one step further, there was a Nirvana before the Nirvana we know from Seattle. So that was kind of the message I had. And I personally see a name is just a name, and that in this day and age, that with there being 6 billion people on the face of this planet, it should be more about the personalities and the stories behind a name, not the actual encompassing of a name itself. And if people get hung up on that, personally, I see that as a person that I don't want to interact with because they go against what I stand and what Cancer is essentially in the lyrics I write.
Cool. No, and I totally agree. That's why I was kind of asking because the name fits the band really well, in my opinion, as well too. Where misanthropic kind of ideas, kind of dark thoughts. They're not the run of the mill suicidal black metal or the run of the mill kind of let's go scream about Satan death metal like death metal or black metal, which is really one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you because you kind of just named one of the bands that I really feel like you kind of feel that you fit in with very well, which is the Swedish Shining. Like I think you guys have a lot of similarities in that where there's a lot of diverseness in that band and yeah, the Norway release Shining is very, very different. I know they're a proggy jazz kind of thing, but bands like so I know you guys call yourself like depressive. Well, I don't know. I guess your title depressive black metal, but I see you more as a dark metal band. I hear more elements of like Bethlehem, the Anonymous. I hear like Forgotten Tombs, Silencer. Those kind of bands are the bands I hear when you're creating the music for Cancer. Kind of explain to me, what brought you to be the band Cancer? Like what bands really interest you or made you the band you are today?
Funnily enough, like when we were putting together the last album, like I was listening to all sorts of weird shit. So I went through, like it's no secret to those that know me, I'm a massive Dissection fan. So I was playing like Storm of the Lights, Bane, the Somberlane, like almost on repeat. It was a point of contention where I'd sort of come around and hang out with John, and as you said, John's got a bunch of guitars on his wall, and I'd pick one off, and I'd meant to be doing something Cancer related, and I'd start playing like Night's Blood or anything like some Dissection. You're like, can you fucking cut that out and pay attention? I'm like, well, sorry, man. And I just play. But I was heavily I drew a lot of influence from like early to mid 90s, like sort of Swedish death metal and black metal. So the first the two Dissection records, At the Gates, Dismember, Entombed. That was what I was kicking around pretty heavily while I was writing a lot of the stuff for Opioid. And then there was a few records I can't remember the names of. John sends me like a weekly list of stuff that he finds on Angry Metal Guy, and he's like, "Oh, check this out! This is really cool." And but no, I was mainly kicking around like early '90s Swedish death and black metal while we were recording, and that's where I took a lot of. Well, I feel I took a lot of influence from those albums when I was writing. Like, I'm familiar with bands like like Total Self-Hatred, Forgotten Tomb, Shining, and whatnot. But no, I didn't really draw much from that.
Okay.
For writing.
Myself, I listen to all sorts of genres. I've constantly got music going on my phone or a record player at home or on a computer. So I listen to a vast array of music. I'd have to say, in terms of black metal influences, that I guess encompass me across not only this record but the past two records. I'd have to think of examples such as obviously Emperor. At the Gates was really big on me when in my teens or late teens. Kind of was the transition for me from the Australian hard rock bands I listened to and New Zealand bands growing up in my teens as well. Opeth, obviously, everybody loves old school.
Great New Zealand band.
Yeah. Well, a good New Zealand band, if I'm going to name drop one, is Shihad. I was a massive fanboy of Shihad when growing up, as in terms of rock bands. But in terms of the black metal side, it was Emperor for me was the transition. And as I listened to music more and more, I was listening to atmospheric black metal for a little bit of time, and then kind of got a bit sick of it because it just seems there's a lot of people out there, solo atmospheric projects with a keyboard and a synth just doing the same thing. It got a bit repetitive for me. So then, dabbling into the depressive and depressive suicidal genres, bands that come to mind, as you mentioned, The Shining, Life Lover, Silencer, Psychonaut 4, who we toured with previously with Dead Space. Yeah, love those guys, absolute legends, and I was a fan of theirs before we even played with them. And in fact, in one of my YouTube channels where I do covers, Blasphemous Libel, I did a cover of theirs before I even met the guys. So I was a little bit starstruck when I got to meet them. They're those crazy Georgians. So I think that's a handful of ones I can think of. Also post-rock, listen to a lot of post-rock, a bit of classical music sometimes as well. Just depends on the mood, and hell, I even dabble in a bit of EDM sometimes as well. I don't really give a shit what people think about, I don't think genres should define people and what they like. In fact, I always say to people when it comes to writing music or listening, A famous quote from Duke Ellington, and that's, if it sounds good, it is good, and nobody should have to tell you what it is. So
cool. And you kind of jumped the gun on me a little bit there, because I was going to kind of talk about the opioid record, where um, if this is offensive, so be it, but this is praise coming from me to you guys right now. Um, I, there are poppy elements on this record that really impress me. Like, there's really upbeat moments as well too. It's not all such a downer. Like, I totally can hear electronic elements. I can hear indie rock elements. I can hear more of that. Like, there's just there's even like an indie rock kind of vibe to it at times, like just the way the guitar tones are played. And when you say stuff like dismember and dissection, you can hear that, like, and this is not a bad thing, that chainsaw kind of guitar tone, which is like, that's great. Like, I grew up with that too. Like, it's kind of welcoming and warming to be able to hear that in black metal as well too. So I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about Opioid, because I've only heard that record. I've not heard your earlier materials at all. How does it differ from the first EP and LP?
I could give that answer, or do you want to?
It differs from the first two releases, primarily because Opioid, like a large portion of the music was composed solely by myself. One of the original members of the band, Chris, who's vocalist of Dead Space, has his new project called Exotium Sui, and I've probably grossly mispronounced that, so I apologize. He composed the drums for Opioid with previous releases. He composed quite a large, like almost 80% onwards of the original, of the earlier material. Like the first EP we released was he recorded it like, he
literally in a week.
Literally in a week. Like, he calls me up and he's like, "Oh, look, Dan, have you still got any guitars floating around? Like, do you want to play in a band? Just like John singing, we're going to call it Cancer." And I'm just like, "Fuck, like the death metal band?" He's like, "Yeah, like the death metal band." So he wrote everything in a week, and then with the album we followed up after that. Like, that was a writing effort with him and I that lasted two and a bit weeks. So the difference between Opioid and the earlier material is more so Chris's involvement. Like, he composed drums for the new album, whereas most of the music, so a lot of the songwriting itself was handled by myself.
Nice.
In terms of the, I guess the actual audio quality, or just what's you actually hearing as a listener, to add what Dan was saying behind the workings behind the scenes. I'd have to say Terminal was very much a wall of sound, atmospheric influenced album for sure. And you hear also with the vocals is very much orientated to focusing purely on, like, as you alluded to, like silencer influenced kind of vocals.
Yep.
Lyrically, the content as well is more based upon just my musings of the world and shit that had happened to me in my life at the time, based on some weird affairs. So that was what Terminal, our debut EP, was about. Into the Heartless Silence thereafter was more influenced by, the typical lo-fi black metal you would hear in the early 90s. Also a fair bit of Leviathan coming through in terms of the production as well. And in general, again, the lyrical content on that record was, I guess, more of my musings of the world and things happening in my life that were just pissing me off about things and circumstances. Whereas Opioid, it was, in terms of the production, I took full charge of the production on that record. We had previously hired people to do the mixing in those, and did the audio engineering from scratch, and took a lot of influence. Personally, being a record snob of 70s and 80s vinyl, I wanted to deliberately produce a record that was, very, very little brick walling. So in the mastering, it's something that I wanted to, where compression was applied only where it was needed to give the music room to breathe. And the plugins I was using were all, digital plugins trying to replicate analog material and compressors, EQs that you'd see commonly in 80s and 90s music. And then obviously the lyrical content was more focused on a concept album, on the musings and scrawlings of the 19th century English essayist Thomas de Quincey. So, quite a stark contrast in Opioid compared to how the previous material we wrote was written and also produced.
Nice. So yeah, I'm going to kind of bounce off of that because there's a lot of, like, I agree, openness or atmospheric elements on this record where a lot of I guess depressive black metal or dark metal becomes very compressed and very just one-dimensional at times because it's just about the pain itself. Like I was saying before, there's highs and lows. There's an actual crescendo on this record where a lot of bands that do similar styles of music you do, that doesn't happen. While you were recording this, did that just happen naturally as you were doing it? Or was that actually, as you were saying, planned out from day one that it was going to be kind of, this record very much goes, in my opinion, it jumps really high, then it has this kind of low dark point, and then it comes back up to like this really high crescendo again. Was that done on purpose? Like, were the tracks arranged that way, or was that just something that kind of happened as you were writing it?
I wrote the songs out of order. So the order that's the arrange. So John and I arranged them in that order because John came up with the lyrical idea himself. So he spearheaded that. And he's like, this is a story that I want to convey. And I'm like, well, here's 8 songs that I've written. And John had to listen to them. Like, I wrote the songs as inspiration struck. So I think the first song that was written for the album was track 1, The Eater. And then the last song was actually track 7.
Okay.
And we actually nearly scrapped that one. I remember having, like, because the 7th track, so Sunken Piers is written in 7/4 time, and I remember most of the album, I think there's a 3/4 song, and mostly 4/4, but there's this one track that was 7/4, and the way you recorded the drums, but there's parts in there that actually played in 4/4, so it's 7/4 with a couple of 4/4 mistakes. And I'm playing along to it. I'm just like, why is this all over the fucking? Like, I couldn't write a song to it. I'm really like, fuck it, fuck this song, fuck this time signature. We're having a 7-track album, and then I somehow managed to make it work. And then, because I was sending songs through to John like one at a time, so I think the order I wrote the songs in was like 1, 4, 6. I sent it all out of order.
Sure.
And and then when John came up with the lyrical idea, then we sat down, we arranged the songs in order, how we thought they'd go, what John thought he could do with them, and that led us to what people have now. But no, fuck no, I have ADHD. I am terribly disorganized. Most of the time I was just sitting there like writing. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, this guitar sounds pretty cool. I had no idea what I was fucking doing. And then just gave it all to John, and John's like, all right, we'll organize this and we'll get it all nice and neat. And
gotcha.
Yeah. But at the same time, I wanted on this record, I guess, Dan really to shine through when not only in terms of the production, but also the writing process, because, this, I guess, was our first time, where after the disbanding of Dead Space, that we wanted to create our own identity and be something completely dissociated away from Dead Space. And we're going to continue to try and push that going forward. There's the people that have listened to us and are aware of us because of our involvement in Dead Space, which we can't thank enough for those people coming on the journey and supporting us now that we're a 2-piece. But at the same time, I wanted to be something that we create our own identity, and Dan takes sole charge of what he is good at and is being the riff lord he is. And then for myself, being able to take full charge of what I'm good at, and that's being able to write lyrics and basically wail into a microphone into creating a story out of it to gauge the listener.
Being a massive audio nerd.
That's it.
It's like, these recordings are bullshit. I can't work with this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
here you go, man. I just let the guitar go burr, man. Just
Very cool. So I'll tell you the whole reason I kind of even listened to the record to begin with was because of your PR guy. And I don't know if you wrote this or not, but there was just a line about that. If you like Silencer, you're gonna love this record. And like the Silencer record is probably one of my favorite, just fucked up, crazy albums I've ever heard in my life. So anytime anybody puts a reference in for a band or an album like that, I have to listen to it. And I feel like there's Controlled Chaos on your record that is very similar to that album. So that's kudos, guys. Like I really am just very like I listen to it a lot just because of that. Like um the world's a very dark place, and listening to music like yours calms me down. I know it's kind of like an odd thing for some people, but like the more frantic, the more chaotic, the more diverse, the better it is for me to be able to have my mind unwind. Like, what bands right now are you guys listening to that you would say are those bands that your go-to bands? Not the past, like right now. Is there any one or two bands that like you would say are giving you those guilty pleasures right now?
You go first. I've got one or two in my head.
like, does it have to be like releases from this year or
No, anything
like,
that's right now that you're listening to that's like your go-to music.
All right.
fuck it, I'll own it, man. I smash a fuckload of Lady Gaga.
Okay, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, fucking left-hand path, do what I want. No, but no, there's one band that I've actually been kicking around quite an awful lot. That's kind of cool. There's a band called Altar from Siberia.
Okay.
So they write. So it's atmospheric post-black or post-black. There's post and atmospheric in there, but they're I think like the first Numenorian EP with it's like Numenorian meets Ghostbath meets like bits of Emperor. There's all sorts of stuff in there. But they're a band that I've been flogging quite frequently. There's another band, not Assoth, Aosoth.
Yeah. The French black metal band. AUS.
Yeah.
So those I've been playing a fair bit of those. The Lady Gaga thing's also true. Like I'm not even going to bother hiding that one. So.
For myself, it's really hard for me to put it down to like one or two albums because I've like constantly, I listen to almost about 200, 300 new albums a year. I've kind of got this routine where every year I check out or every day I'm checking out blogs like yourself, your one, and other blogs to try and just see what's new and fresh out there and, support the scene through those means. And, keep music on cycle, listening through, streaming at work and that sort of thing. But if I was to put it down to like two records that really stick out for me at the moment, one of them is, I can't pronounce this for shit, a Norwegian band that's been going around the traps recently called Verdhammer. Vreidhammer, I think. Yeah, they're just absolute riffage is just incredible on that record, and just good fun, but also good release of aggression for me that I enjoy a lot of. And then if I was to say the other one, like really over the past few weeks, because it's been a few personal things going on at work and that's been stressing the fuck out of me and triggering my insomnia that I've had since I was a kid. Is my go-to when I can't sleep is the post-rock or shoegaze band Slowdive, and my favorite record off theirs is Souvlaki. So I listen to that record a lot when I'm dealing with insomnia and woes, just to calm me down as well. I know it's a bit of a contrast to the aggressive music they were saying for that cathartic release. But I think, you know, both of them have their place in dealing with the woes of, you know, life, and especially this year for everybody. So
I fucking love Slow Dive, so that's very cool. Slow Dive, Curve, and Swerve Driver are like three of my favorite bands ever. So that's badass, man. Very cool. So I want to go back to Opioid for a second and ask you why DIY, why independent, why not try and find a label for something that is so well done? Do you want to just kind of keep it in your pocket for yourself, or did you just say fuck it? Why deal with a record label?
We went our previous two releases. We did go through a record label, and it very, very quickly turned into a shit fight. We had a bunch of orders that weren't met from the actual label distributing our stuff. We did a Japanese tour
2018.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And we not long put out this album, and we said to the label, like, hey, we're going to go do a short stint in Japan. Send us some CDs so we can flog them. And he's like, yeah, no dramas. Never rocked up. So we did a run of CDs to take over there, and they still never. I think they showed up after like a month or two after we got back.
Yes, yeah. So you'll see on our Bandcamp when we actually released them recently, at the Into the Heartless Silence record. That's the commitment that we had with our record label at the time. I won't mention the name. You can go back and look at the history if you want. I don't like slinging dirt, but the agreement they had, we only ever received half of what was contractually agreed to be sent to us, and the other we just received excuse after excuse until eventually they claimed they went bankrupt. So being I guess a small label being run out of someone's own personal funds, these things happen. But we've seen it not only happen that to this label, but also to Dead Space, where they they got stung by smaller labels as well. So we got a bit sick of that, and we had to, for that Japan tour, print our own batch just to sell something. And with that, we've now sold out of the original batch that we received from our label at the time, and thought, as a thank you to all of our fans that have supported us, or the ones that had missed out, well, let's release the Japanese ones that are the same price as a digital purchase. So just so people, if they want to have physical access to their record, they still do. And then I guess also from an independent sake, we wanted to do it all ourselves, because I guess from what happened with the disbanding of Dead Space and the way that we had the labels that we had to deal with previously, we were just tired of having to deal with bureaucracy and means, and that's we're I guess doing a disservice to the fans that we are trying to serve. So it made sense in our minds, I guess, to go back to being independent and just taking full charge of everything, from merchandise to promotion to recording and to mixing and mastering. And that's I think shows in the end result, whether it be good or bad, that we, through taking full charge, we were able to produce a product that reflects truly ourselves and nobody else. So yeah,
we had people messaging us saying, "Oh, the label, this provider hasn't sent us our shit. What are you going to do about it?" And it's like, don't know, man. We don't. Yeah. We still get messages like that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And it's like, sorry, it's like you purchased it through the old label, who are through their store in North America, whereas we have our batch on our website,
by direct
based
from
in
the
Australia,
artist.
direct from the artist.
Oh no, I completely understand. Just on a side story, my band, our last record, our record label was supposed to put out 500 vinyls, and it never showed up. And then the record label folded, and I had the same thing. People like, "Where's my vinyl? Where's my vinyl?" I'm like, "We're the band, we're not the label." I completely understand where you guys are going. It actually came to the point where I now started my own record label as well too, because I have the same aesthetics as you, where do it yourself, and if anything goes wrong, it's up to you. Like, now you make sure everything gets taken care of. That's awesome. Are you going to continue like that, or are you going to look for labels in the future, or do you feel comfortable with what you're doing right now?
We have discussed like behind closed doors, Dan and I, that we definitely are not going to rule out, a label again. But I think this time around, when that happens, we would want to be a lot more methodical about it and not just pick anybody off the streets. Do a lot of research and engagement. And also, it depends on what the label, I guess, is offering us. Like two gaps I see that we feel like are missing, that we would love to pursue, as you were talking to before, is vinyl. But I've seen, through Dead Space and through other bands, people who've tried to release vinyl independently, and there's a huge risk to take. The costs and ramifications, if it all goes belly up, is massive. So we felt like not comfortable as, through, going back to a two-piece and doing things independently and having the pretty big shifts we've had in the way the band's set up, comfortable making that commitment to vinyl at this point. But in the future, we think we can. And secondly, as well, we're not masters at PR and promotion. Let's face them, and most bands aren't. We haven't got marketing degrees. We don't know the intricacies of the industry. We try to learn as best as we can, through contacts and whatnot. Do it that way. But ultimately, I think what a lot of labels provide, that bands lack, is that ability to have, good marketing and PR behind you. And I think if, a future label is able to offer that to us, we'd certainly be interested for sure.
So if somebody was about to listen to Opioid for the very first time and they've never heard your band before, how would the two of you describe it to them before they listen to it for the first time?
I think for myself, I would say that it depends on whether they're a metalhead or not. If they weren't a metalhead at all, I'd say to them, come into this with an open mind. You probably have never heard wailing or the DSBM genre at all, and in fact, there's some people that that have been metalheads for years that have never touched that genre at all. So they find especially the vocals very confronting, to say the least. And I'd say coming into it with an open mind, and it's focused on anguish, it is focused on suffering, but at the same time, make the effort when you listen to it to read the lyrics. I make a conscious effort to release all the lyrics on music. I don't like to be obscure in that sense, because I think that's one of the big gaps between a non-metal listener, like appreciating our music or metal music in general, is like when they can actually follow what's being said and the concept behind the music and the theme. Musically, though, I would say if you would come into that, we're a combination of mixes, as alluded to by Dan, of like early 90s black metal and melodic Swede death metal, in my opinion. And we take those influences and try to put a twist on the DSBM genre, so it's not just straight out in your face aggression. But taking those more melodic aspects, I guess, of the 90s black metal, Swede death metal, so Dissection, Emperor, At the Gates, etc., etc. If that's probably the way I'd pitch it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to describe it to someone. It's just, there's lots of riffs. If you like riffs, you'll probably like it.
That's as good as anything, man. No, that's as good as.
Hey, man, you want some riffs? Here, have a listen to this.
Cool. So I know it's just the two of you right now, right? Or do you have an actual full band with you that you're going to be working with in the future?
At this point, I think we're just going to remain a two-piece. We do have, quite a few people we're working with at the moment behind the scenes as live session members. But at this stage, I I think we want to just focus on being a two-piece and keep it at that. I guess we've dealt in the past and seen, through our experiences in Dead Space, people that come in and join as permanent members, coming and going, toing and froing, and I don't want to go down that path. I like stability, and I'm a person that doesn't like a lot of change. So I think if we are going to have other people come on board, it's like they have to be all in on what it is that we do and what we envision as good music in our twist on the depressive black metal genre, I guess, is what we want. We don't just want to pick up anybody willy-nilly off the street. It has to be you're bought into the music, you're bought into the concept. Because there's certain musicians out there, especially in Perth, that are brilliant guitarists, brilliant drummers, etc. But ultimately, they just want to play shows. It's for them. It's about the rush of playing live, and not necessarily buying into the theme and the concepts behind what is cancer and what is our take on depressive black metal. So that's how I see it at the moment, and we'll probably keep that way for at least the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just just having the two of us, it works at the moment. Like the writing and recording process was quite easy. It was quite painless for the most part. It was literally just me collaborating with John. Like I'd send John like a demo track, and he'd be like, he'd have a listen to it, and he'd sort of come back and say, yeah, look, yeah, nay. Whereas I think with like working like with a band again, I don't know, they need to, like John said, it just wouldn't be any dickhead with a guitar. It'd someone that's just like, look, yeah, I give a shit about this. Let's make something really, 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 really cool out of it. Yeah, we've had like multiple, we did try the band thing for like the first iteration of the band, and it reached a point where people were just like, look, no, I'm going to go do this, or no, I'm going to go focus on this. And it's just like, we're in our 30s, we're too old for that shit.
I got
It's
you.
just like, we're at the stage now, it's just, yeah, it's like, we like stability. It's just like, we're at the stage where, like, if we've got, like, if people want to, like, we want to play shows, then yeah, there's session guys we can pull from, but it would take someone pretty special not take someone pretty special. It's not like it's like an elite club or something. It's just like there's a method that John and I use in creating for this band that we've found. We've both played in different groups before, and there's like a creative chemistry between John and I that just works. And it's painless. There's no fucking around. It's just, I send John music, John yells at it, and we release it. And it works. It's easy and it works.
Awesome.
And,
with a dash of my snobbery in between, telling you whether to fix things or not.
Yeah. It's like,
No,
did you choose guitar, Dan?
Yeah, tuning a guitar sometimes is important, right? But
playing a section riffs, you dickhead.
That's pretty much it.
So your kind of music kind of brings a very visual presentation. I got a couple more questions that I'm going to kind of dig around on this, and then I'm going to call it a day for you guys. But like I said, so it's got a very visual or kind of thematic kind of feeling to it. Have you ever thought, or are you interested in doing any kind of video or visual kind of sides to Opioid at all?
So we did have a lyric video we did release for Opioid. It's available on YouTube for the 6th track, which is called Depths Part 4 Summit's Delusion. We did deliberately, from that visual aspect, go down the path of the lyric video this time instead of band music videos like we did on Into the Heartless, Silence, and Terminal. And that was deliberate because I guess one, with two of us, it's not exactly as exciting seeing a two band guys headbanging when there's not a full band in front of you. And secondly, as well, like being a concept record, I thought it was a good opportunity to, I guess, generates visuals and, you know, this symbolism in that video that kind of encapsulates the story of Thomas De Quincey and that track, Some Delusion, what it's about. It's which is taken from one of his essays or sections of essays called Suspiria de Profundis, standing for Sighs from the Depths in Latin. And he talks about in this, that's one particular essay he wrote about some nightmares he had, a reoccurring nightmare he had, where he would constantly talk about these hikers that would go up a German mountain or a Brocken, and they would deliberately over those hikes would go up there because of a myth that they would see the spectre in the distance that was like, you know, I guess a visual phenomena, but little did they know that it was actually a reflection of themselves. So I kind of wanted to play off that concept in that lyric video, and you know, intertwine that as well with the history behind Thomas De Quincey, him being, you know, massive opium addict, and you know, English essayist in the 19th century Victoria era in England.
Cool.
There's some ideas for some more visual content, but just at this stage, there's a few workings going on behind the scenes. There's a few things we're trying to put together and organize, but we've kicked around the idea of maybe doing some more visual based content, but there's nothing I can really promote or do like really speak much of at the moment.
I think our focus at the moment is mostly just getting out there and playing shows again. You know, before, you know, we were saying this in another interview a couple of weeks ago that I originally formed Cancer with Chris Cabauer from a sheer frustration of being a dungeon dweller in Perth, working with a few studio project bands and doing covers through my YouTube channel and kind of filling in for a few bands here and there. And I just was saying to him one night in frustration, I just want to play more shows, damn it. And he said, well, fuck it, let's start a band called Cancer and play live shows. But then we got pulled into his main group, Dead Space, and that just took up all of our time. And, you know, as friends, playing shows with that group, that Cancer ended up being returning back to a studio project. So now that this is our sole focus for Dan and I, we're now with a new record behind our belt, a new lineup, new way it's been produced. The fact it's an independent release, we're focusing on just getting out there and playing shows, at least locally in Perth, Western Australia, and we'll see where it goes from there. Whether it be interstate shows, overseas shows, we've had a few offers, but it's very obviously difficult to do that during these times of COVID. So, you know,
good old kung flu.
Yep.
So that's kind of what that's what I was going to kind of ask. So from an outsider across the sea, are you able to do live shows right now in your area? Or are people playing live, or is it something that's because here it's not even possible yet?
We're pretty lucky. We're pretty lucky in WA. So I think we've had a total of, we're at less than 700 cases throughout the entire epidemic. So yeah, we've got live music here. We've got a number of local promoters that are putting together like packages, like really, really great, like tour-worthy packages of local bands. We had a couple of weeks ago in Perth, there was like a little mini festival that ran over I think it was over 2 or 3 stages, and it's just like we've been able to sort of return to somewhat a normal state of life just because of how the virus is being handled here. So yeah, we've got live shows almost every weekend. You can go down to your local pub for a beer. You can, it's almost business as normal, except like when people sneeze, usually it's like, oh, stay the fuck away from me. But things are almost back to normal here. Like there's gigs of all sorts nearly every other weekend. Most of the venues have opened back up. It's all, and it's been really good for local musicians, because there's been a lot more opportunities for them to play instead of sort of competing with international bands and bands from the rest of Australia. So they've been able to sort of get a little bit more time in the spotlight, and people have been paying attention to more local music, and which has been good.
Yeah, it varies from state to state over here, as I'm sure it does over in the States. Because Western Australia, you look at us on the map, we're a huge state compared to the rest of Australia, and the government over here has been very, very strict in the way in which they've basically had hard borders for quite some time, and with that we were able to contain any, I guess, spread of the virus from the eastern states, the much more populated parts like Victoria and New South Wales, where Victoria has taken the biggest brunt out of all the states in terms of cases, and pretty much everything has been shut down there for months. It's been pretty tough.
They've actually gone back. So we're sort of like easing restrictions. I think Victoria was the east coast, they were easing restrictions, and things went to shit again, and they've gone back into lockdown for a little bit.
Yeah, and starting to ease a little bit again, but our state has survived pretty nicely. We had a little bit where we were all contained to our houses, but it wasn't for very long.
It's great. We were pretty lucky. Our head of state, in the early days, but our head of state pretty much told the rest of Australia, closed the borders and told the rest of Australia to fuck off.
Gotcha.
I'm fairly certain that man is going to have a bronze statue in the middle of the Swan River, which is the big river running through our city. So, if Mark McGowan, if you're watching this, mate, you're an absolute fucking legend. No one watching this is going to know who he is, but we think you're God, and thank you for keeping sneezing dickheads out of our state.
Nice. That's great. So, at the end of the day, if this was the very last record that you guys both made, as far as Cancer, what do you want people to remember the band for after these couple of records that you've done? What would be one or two things that you would want to be remembered for as the band Cancer?
That's a really good question. I think, one, going back to earlier discussions, that get your head over past the name and the actual messages behind our music, and there's a deliberate focus on that is one bad thing I'd want us to be remembered for. Two, I would say for the fact that we write music deliberately to be I guess non-compromising whatsoever, and I want to be recognized as an identity that doesn't compromise when it comes to what we vision and what we want to produce. And I guess thirdly, I'd say is, we want to be recognized as a band that, I guess, produces something a little bit different to the norm. I mean, depressive black metal is not exactly a very accessible form of music, let alone in the heavy metal genres. But we've put our own spin on it, and we wanted to present something different to, I guess, open minds with music that has a different flavor in the depressive genre, with the aspects and melodies we talked about before, and also the lyrical content, that it's not just about, hey, make a change, go kill yourself, even though that they are a great band, but that there is darkness in the light, and positivity and negativity, and there's the contrasts in between that make life interesting, and also the topics of misanthropy are interesting as well, that everybody is different and everybody has identities, but as a collective, people piss me off. How about yourself? Tunes, riffs?
Yeah, I don't know. Be remembered for riffs. With opioid is, I don't know. It's weird because the second there was no real break. I'm always playing guitar and always noodling along or playing something. And as soon as probably much this one's Chagrin, as soon as opioid was released, I straight away started putting stuff together. like I started writing, and like I was like started thinking about like, you know, what we're going to do moving forward. So I don't know, I probably in the same, like not sort of, probably not to be lumped in with the UK cancer or the Ukrainian cancer or the Japanese cancer. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, there you go, we should do a cover of To the Gory End, but I think that might be taking the piss a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we might get a couple of angry messages about that one. I don't know. That's a tough one. Like, I've never really sort of looked at it in a situation where someone's like, "What do you want to be remembered for?" It's just, you know, like John said, it's just like probably just riffs.
Okay, perfect.
I'm quite simple in that regard.
Or
My guitar sounds like a chainsaw.
Hey, that chainsaw guitar sound is a special sound. Don't ever let it be anything else than that.
That's it. I'll just put a HM2 in my pedal chain for live shows.
So I'm going to end it with this. I'm going to give you guys an open forum to kind of tell my hundreds, if maybe thousands of viewers that are going to watch this to be able to talk about your new record, whatever is going to be coming up in the future. You kind of, I know you said you're not really PR men, but talk about your band for a second. Talk about what you're going to be doing in the next, I don't know, 3 months or so.
Okay. Well, first off, you know, thanks so much for organizing this, Clint. It's been a pleasure, you know, talking to you and just about the musings of the world and what is us as cancer. In terms of people who have never heard us before, if you want to check us out, go to our Bandcamp at canceroz.bandcamp.com, facebook.com/thecanceroz as well. You'll find plenty of shit up there that we post and scroll about. And then I guess in terms of upcoming stuff, we definitely are planning on playing shows locally in Perth. You know, it's probably going to be a while yet, thanks to COVID and everybody else, whether we'll be able to play interstate or not. We'll continue writing, that's for sure, in the meantime, and we look forward to presenting this all to you in a live forum and also more physical material in the foreseeable near future.
So yeah, probably we'll be doing, ideally playing. We've got some. We're putting some shows together over the next couple of months, but mainly they'll be in West Australia. So and yeah, you won't be able to come to them because you can't get in.
No.
No, ideally, yeah. As soon as everyone stops sneezing on each other, we'll be looking to sort of play interstate, overseas. We got there's pathways into Europe. We haven't really sort of looked at the States yet. I think that's probably a little bit out of our reach at this moment in time. Yeah, we've started writing some more songs. We've started putting together some more material. There'll be more visual material coming, like more visual content coming. Always more songs. But yeah, as soon as everyone washes their hands and stops sneezing on each other, we'll come out there and we'll start playing music again.
Well, if you come to the US, you goddamn let me know, and I'll be the first one there hanging out with you. I promise you that. Absolutely. I'll definitely put links to your Bandcamp and your YouTube and your Facebook stuff, so my readers, viewers, whatever the hell you want to call them, can check it all out as well. It's been an absolute fucking pleasure, gentlemen. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you for your time, and keep in touch, stay in touch, and I will be listening to everything you do in the future.
No worries. Cheers, Clint.
Thanks, Clint.
You guys have a great night.
Cheers.
Take it easy.